Hello, we'd like to welcome everyone to the Marketing Alliance, a Colorado-based collective of business-to-business marketing and communications professionals. I'm Dana Young and I'm the incoming VP of Programming for the Marketing Alliance. The Marketing Alliance's name is new, but as the organization formerly known as BMA Colorado, we have been creating a network of business professionals for over 60 years. Our mission is to provide networking and learning opportunities for people just like you. We're also actively seeking volunteers for our 2020-2021 board, specifically in programming and communications and web. If you'd like to learn more about becoming a volunteer, visit our website, themarketingalliance.org/volunteer. Today's webinar is on rewriting your resume for success. It's presented in conjunction with Marc Geyer and Sara Donovan from the Creative Group. In today's webinar, you'll learn exactly how to rewrite your resume for success by using the tips and tactics these two recruiters recommend. Marc Geyer, Division Director of Recruiting at the Creative Group, is an advertising professional turned marketplace connector. Marc comes from a background in agency account management and has since moved through the ranks of TCG to become the Division Director of Recruiting for all recruiting for the Colorado market. Marc, can you talk us through how you initially made the transition from agency work to recruiting? You'll need to unmute yourself, Marc.
There we go. Thanks, Dana. Appreciate the introduction. I'm really happy to be here. So yeah, as I said in my bio, I was an advertising account manager at an agency in Boulder. I studied advertising in college and got my first gig in that, and was actually laid off as agencies and marketing agencies tend to kind of have that churn and burn, right? So I was laid off and I was actually a candidate of the Creative Group who helped me get on some interviews, and eventually they mentioned that there was an open role on the Creative Group team, and that's how I kind of transitioned into that role. And I've been with the Creative Group for about 2.5 years now. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy the day-to-day of helping people find jobs and helping companies find great candidates for their roles. And I really see it as a win-win-win situation, right? I'm happy when I make a placement with a great candidate. The candidate is happy, and so is the company. So there's very few industries where you can get a triple win situation there. So that's what I like most about it.
And in your day-to-day, is there anything that you're offered? Are there any qualities or traits that you're often looking for in ideal candidates?
I mean, ideal candidates, it's really culture fit, personality, right? Being able to speak to your experience, especially in Colorado. Culture fit is such a big, portion of the role. And I say, if you're going for any role, culture fit and liking the people that you work with is half the battle, if not more. So just, finding that perfect fit for you and the company and being able to really speak to your experience and skills and get along with the folks you work with.
Awesome, thank you. Sara Donovan is a content creator turned senior recruiter at the Creative Group. Sara left her career in writing and social media to become an ally in the job search process. Sara, what was the impetus behind switching careers for you?
Well, I mean, I think we've all been there at the Creative Group, right? We know how frustrating this process can be from the job seeker side as well as from the company side, right? Looking for the right talent. And as a job seeker myself, I definitely experienced that in the world of marketing. It's just tough out there making the right connections and making sure that your resume is seen by the right person and that you can get that foot in the door. So I had an ongoing relationship with the Creative Group. Worked with them a little bit as a candidate on the freelance side of things, and just kind of spoke to them on and off, through the ins and outs of full-time versus freelance employment. Ultimately, my recruiter that I was connected with ended up posting something about a need for a new recruiter on the TCG side of things. And when I saw it, it was just one of those moments, everything aligned, and I kind of knew like, oh, that would be so fun. That's exactly what I want to do, right? I mean, finding people jobs is a dream come true. And obviously I get to meet a ton of really interesting people in this line of work. So that's kind of the long answer of how I got into this, but I've been loving every day so far.
Talk us through how you might help your clients in any given workday.
clients. So, I mean, obviously we're here to provide solutions for them, right? So they come to us usually in tricky spots. They need someone to complete a project really quickly, or they need a full-time staffing solution, and they just know that we can kind of put the pieces together really quickly. So that's something that I really enjoy, right? Working with companies to help them find not just a fit, someone who can be kind of, you know, a temporary placeholder, but someone who will really truly be a great fit, whether it's a freelance opportunity or a long-time direct hire opportunity.
And then on the flip side of that, how might you help any of the candidates in any given day as well?
So I think the best thing about this job is that we can just be that ally in the process. You know, we have all been there. We know how frustrating the job hunt is. So I can help be that additional set of eyes out there on the job hunt and let my candidates know about new opportunities that I'm seeing on the market and what we're working on at that time, but also just be there for resume feedback, for interview prep, for, you know, someone to reach out to when they have a general market insight question. So I think that's what I enjoy most about the day-to-day, is just kind of maintaining those connections and helping people in any way I can, whether that's providing them with new opportunities or just, you know, helping because this is what I do every day.
Okay, great. All right, well, we'll start the presentation part of today in a couple of moments. For anyone that's just joined us, the way we're going to run things today is that Sarah and Mark will present, then we'll open it up for about 15 to 20 minutes of questions. In doing so, please have your resume open and be prepared to potentially share your screen, as we'll hand over host mode to you so that you can easily show references should you need to. When we do get to it, please let us know in the Q&A whether your question is simply a question or if you have a question and a screen share request when we get to it. And again, just all questions go into the Q&A, and then we'll host some time for questions towards the end of the webinar. Okay, let's get started.
All righty. Well, I'm going to share my screen here, and then we will dive right in. All right, Dana, is it showing up well for you?
Yes.
All righty. So let's dive in. I'm going to run the first half of the presentation and then turn it back over to Mark. So I'm going to go over what we're covering today. But before I dive into that, I do want to say, you know, take this all with a grain of salt. Everything in here is our opinion. We do look at resumes pretty frequently over here. So what we've gathered in this presentation are general tips and tricks, do's and don'ts that we found to be best practices when trying to land the job. But ultimately, there are no hard and fast rules when it comes to resume building. So if you have questions on specifics, or if you found that there's something that you've been using in your resume that is just ultimately very successful for you, then by all means continue to do so. So firstly, we'll dive into tips and tricks, right? How to build your resume, what to include, what not to include, how to format it, what voice to use, all of those ins and outs. We have it structured kind of in an FAQ format, right? So we go through and kind of cover the questions that we get asked most on the day-to-day. We'll dive into social media as well. Obviously, LinkedIn and other social media platforms have a lot to do with ultimately landing that interview and landing the job. Thirdly, getting into how to communicate with hiring managers, what questions to ask, what not to do, that sort of thing, just in the process of landing the job. We'll then get into live resume feedback. So if there are any brave volunteers who want to share their screens, Mark and I can kind of go through that live with you and share our thoughts and insights. And of course, then we'll get into questions. So a little bit about Robert Half. We are a staffing agency. We were actually founded in 1948, which makes us the oldest, largest staffing agency in the world. The creative group is a specialized division of Robert Half that dives primarily into creative and marketing opportunities, as you can kind of glean from our name, right? But Robert Half does kind of dive into all industries, right? From accounting and finance to technology, legal, administrative. And ultimately, across all of those divisions, the goal is simple and straightforward, right? We want to help to find job seekers jobs, and we want to help our clients in finding the best possible talent on the market. So we do that both through freelance and interim project solutions, right? Working with consultants and freelancers kind of on project-based work, contract to hire, that sort sort of thing, but also with full-time hiring and opportunities. Two other things that I like to call out that kind of set us apart is we do have a managed solutions side of things, which is essentially kind of a mini agency, right? If a company has a project that they would ideally like to outsource to an agency, but maybe the price point is a little too high there, we can kind of rally a group together that is managed under our umbrella for that project. Additionally, we have our long-term consultants or our salaried professionals. So they're actually salaried members of the creative group that we then kind of lend out on a project-by-project basis to different companies. So that's a little bit about us and what we do. Obviously, here at the creative group, we're all about marketing and creative. So we're going to be focusing on those sorts of resumes in this presentation. Ultimately, the goal of a resume, to get the interview, right? We've heard it many times. A poorly crafted resume can be a deal breaker when it comes to getting the interview. Your resume is prime real estate. You want to use that space wisely and try to capture the hiring manager's attention quickly. So this isn't about telling your full life story. It's about landing the interview so then you get to share more about yourself. Now on to the FAQs. So should your resume be one page? This is a biggie, especially when you get up to 10 plus years of experience, and can be a little bit tricky to fit all of that onto one page. And there is no hard and fast rule here, but generally, if you have less than 5 years of experience, you want to keep it to one page. We even see professionals who have like 15, 20 years of experience who are able to do that. So be as concise as possible. If you have over 5 years of experience, 2 pages is certainly acceptable, but try your best to keep it under 3. The key here being timing, right? I mean, the hiring manager probably has 7 to 10 seconds that they're dedicating to your resume. They're not going to want to flip through 5 to 10 pages of experience. You want to make sure that you're representing yourself as concisely and clearly as possible in as little space as possible. One way that you can kind of trim that, if you've had at least 2 jobs in your career, go ahead and leave that summer internship off of your resume, or a retail job, or if you've switched careers, you can leave any older employment experiences off of there that may not be super relevant anymore. More on length. Go ahead and leave interests off, right? I mean, I feel like almost everyone on this call probably is interested in either hiking, reading, skiing, snowboarding, traveling, and cooking, right? We're all Coloradans. Unless you were a child actor, if you've hiked all 58 14ers, if you've completed an Ironman or got a 4-chair turn in The Voice, feel free to leave those interests off. I feel like they just don't always add anything, and they can be a little bit of a space suck. One exception I will say, especially for all of those graphic designers out there, is sometimes it can be helpful to include logos. So, if you love camping, including like a little tent logo or something like that, we have found those to be kind of unique and successful for design resumes, because obviously as a designer, you want to showcase a little bit of your skills without being too overly design heavy. So the interest section can be an interesting way to do that. Additionally, unless super relevant to the role, go ahead and remove volunteer work, awards, accolades, speaking engagements, etc., especially if they were doing during college, unless you're a new grad. That's especially true if this section is causing your resume to go on to 3+ pages, right? So I've definitely seen these sections go, 1 full page or even more. And there are certain instances where it is really important to include your awards. If you're applying to an agency and you want an Addy, for instance, leave that on there because it's a really prestigious award. Or if you're applying to a cause-driven organization, sometimes that volunteer work can be really relevant. But I think the key here is that we don't need to know that you won your backyard barbecue contest last Memorial Day, or that you volunteer at your kid's school an hour a year, or that sort of thing, right? So go ahead and skip those sorts of things. The cover letter, very fun topic here. If we're being honest, we don't always read cover letters, right? Most hiring managers tend to jump into what matters most, which is your skill set, your work history, and your experience. They just want to know that you can do the job, and then the interview will kind of do the rest, right? Unless a company is explicitly asking for a cover letter or a writing sample or something else, then you can probably get away with skipping the formal cover letter. If a company does ask for a cover letter, do not leave it off. That's a big mishap. And another thing I will mention as someone who comes from a writing background and who reads cover letters all the time is you want to make sure that you're customizing your cover letter, right? I've definitely submitted a cover letter before, forgotten to change the company name or something silly like that, and that can just be the deal breaker that prevents you from getting the interview. So make sure that you're combing through it, making sure that it's customized, making sure that there are no grammar errors if you are submitting one. Here's another big one that's come up recently, the video cover letter. We recommend avoiding the video cover letters just because they can be kind of awkward. They can be a little distracting. It's tough to make a truly professional video cover letter. So unless the company asks for one, we really recommend skipping that. There are a few companies we work with who include video interviews or cover letters as part of the application process. And we also might find that that becomes a little bit more prevalent with COVID-19 and everyone working remotely in the digital age and all of that. So if a company does ask for a video cover letter, just make sure that you're in a very professional environment, no distractions, no dogs that can be barking in the background, that sort of thing. Resume voice. So this is mostly subjective, right? Ultimately, the goal here is to convey your experience. So tailor your voice to you and what you prefer. But we do recommend avoiding third person, right? So for instance, you don't want to say something like, Sarah is a content specialist with 5 years of experience in this industry. You would want to say something like, I am a content specialist with 5+ years of experience, or you can even leave the personal reference off and say, a content specialist, right? Third person is a little too formal and it's pretty obvious to the hiring manager that you're the one who wrote the resume, so it doesn't always make a ton of sense. Another thing, keep it objective. Your resume really isn't your full life story. It's not a narrative. You want to get to the point and you want to get to the point quickly. One thing I do recommend, however, is that you use real examples. So make sure to bring up return on investment, goals that you met, how you achieved those goals, how you made the company money, how you achieved growth. Those sorts of metrics can be really helpful. So for instance, instead of saying, you know, I managed social media for 3 clients, say, I managed an audience of 100,000 individuals and grew organic social by 25% in 1 year. Something like that. Just numbers and metrics that can help break up the text and really add color to your resume. Remove paragraphs. You know, no one wants to see a ton of blocks of text when they're opening up a document that they have to read in just a few seconds. So bullets or short phrases are much, much easier to digest and also make it easier for you to organize your experience in a clear and concise way. Remove flowery language. Don't use things like ink slinging ninja or guru or that sort of thing. You know, we kind of prefer that you stay away from cliches. They're just pretty obvious there. They don't really add anything unless the company specifically says in the job description, we're looking for an ink slinging ninja. Probably don't need to say something like that. The header. This is really your opportunity to customize and give yourself a good introduction on the resume. Things to include in there, your name, obviously, and believe it or not, I have seen resumes without names on there, especially with, you know, kind of those more design-oriented resumes. Sometimes there's a logo on there, but the name is accidentally left off, so make sure your name is there because the hiring manager needs to be able to find who they want to interview. Contact information so they can reach out. Phone and email is just fine. Your website link and our portfolio, link to your LinkedIn, those are all great things to include. We typically don't recommend a photo. We have seen it done correctly. You know, if you have a professional headshot, that could be good to leave on there. But in general, it's a space suck, not really needed, right? And please stay away from the mirror selfies because we have seen a lot of those in the past. Personal information doesn't need to be on there, right? So marital status, home address, age, birthday. A lot of this personal info is really commonplace for international, right? Other countries kind of find that standard, but here in the US, we do not need personal information on a resume. So please go ahead and leave that off. In the intro, this is where you can really tailor it, right? Really customize your intro to the job that you're applying for. Sometimes it can be as simple as giving yourself a title that matches closely with the job that you're applying for, right? So if I was to apply to a digital marketing strategist role, and I fit the bill, and I've held similar titles in the past, say Sarah Donovan, digital marketing strategist, right? Instant context just gives the hiring manager an idea like, hey, I'm looking at the right person here. You can also include a quick profile statement relevant to the role you're applying for, right? A 1 to 2 sentence summary of who you are and what really sets you apart in regards to this role. A few bullet points can also be a way to kind of organize your professional summary. And then something I always recommend including on resumes is a bulleted list of your technical skills, right? Especially for more technical candidates. So if you're a marketing automation specialist, you want to include Marketo, Eloqua, A/B testing, like those sorts of things that you're proficient in, because again, it just helps to contextualize your experience and your resume quickly for the hiring manager, and then they can dive into your experience and see how you've applied those hard skills in your past. Do stay away from objective, right? I mean, if you're applying to the job, it's clear that your objective is to get the job. So you don't need to say, secure a role in a fast-paced environment with great coworkers who are going to change the world. Like, it's just a space suck and it doesn't really add much. And then finally, unless you designed your own logo, don't use a generic pixelated version. That is especially true if you're using a resume design service, like Canva, I think they have a lot of logos instantly formatted onto their resumes. So take it off, design your own logo, just don't use one that the hiring manager has probably seen a billion times before. And now I'm gonna turn it over to Mark.
Thanks, Sarah. So next we'll kind of jump into a degree and bachelor's degree and master's degree and where you put those, right? So for undergrad, we typically say unless you're fresh out of school, it should go at the bottom. But if you have a specific degree, especially for something that's required for the role, you can list that near the top. And if you're a designer coming out of portfolio school or something like that, and or any undergrad, really, you want to make sure you list different classes that are relevant, specific to this portfolio school that they may be looking for. So that's important, especially if you're an undergrad. So for graduate school, if you have an MBA or similar master's degree, definitely list that at the top. You've worked really hard to get that. And especially, again, if it's required for the role. And you can have a couple versions, one for jobs that require it and one for jobs that don't. But, that's something, it's an accomplishment. So you want to make sure that that kind of stays near the top. Certificate programs, General Assembly, Turing, coding schools, again, portfolio school. It's nice to list these along with technical skills. If you're a coder or if you're a designer, it's good to see that you came out of coding school and you have these specific skills. Don't inundate your skills section too much. I've seen a lot of coding candidates that are front-end developers or software developers just inundate with so many different skills. Keep that to your top 3 or 4 skills that you did learn at those coding schools. And then, relevant programs to help you get the job, especially if you're changing a career, right? You want to make sure that, hiring managers know that you went to school and, can display those skills through those certificate programs. So jumping to work experience formatting. So this is pretty simple, but sometimes it can get a little hard to kind of digest, right? So list the company name and then a description if it's not obvious, if it's not like a huge organization, Integer Group, for example. Folks know it around town, but it's always good to note that, you may be applying to a role that the company may have no idea what the company is, and they want to know that it's relevant to kind of what they're looking for from a candidate. And then tenure, it's always good to have the month and the year to see how long you've been there. And then job title. And under job title, it should always be bulleted format. I think Sarah touched on this before. and make sure your ROIs are in there. You don't want to have it too many bullets, right? I always say a good 3 to 5 bullets for each position. You can expand that a little bit more if you've worked there for 10 years, right? And you had a lot of different responsibilities, but try to keep it simple to the point. And again, put those ROIs in there. Return on investment. You grew the company by 15%, right? Or your digital marketing program led to this many leads, right? So keep those ROIs definitely in there when talking about content. And then tenure and promotions. So, I think it's best to group multiple roles and promotions under one company name instead of having, separate roles for each, or separate sections for each role you've had there, right? And for one thing, it shows that you've been promoted in the company right there, clean and concise, instead of having to look further down your resume. So for example, Integer Group, you started as a senior account manager, then moved to account supervisor, account director, and list those dates along with it, so they can see, your progression throughout that company. And then you list the content below that. That's where you can get into a little bit more than 3 to 5 bullets. You've had 3 roles there, right? Granted, they're sort of similar roles if you're in an account management type role, but you can expand a little bit there since you've been with the company for quite a long time. And then, the content should focus a little bit more on the more senior level work that you've done there, right? And just maybe briefly touch on the previous roles that you've had. All right, so resume must-haves. I spoke on this before, and so did Sarah. ROIs, right? Measurable results that you've received, and you can kind of speak to within an interview. People like to see those on there, right? Instead of just saying, I manage this account, and this account with high budgets. You talk about what you did well in that role and what it led and what it led to and what the client was happy with and different ROIs in that regard. Visually appealing, matches your professional brand, right? As we discussed earlier, you don't just do a pixelated logo if you're not a designer, but some designers, you can put your brand on there and then make sure that lines up nicely. And then error-free. This is an obvious one, but I can't tell how many resumes I've seen come in with spell errors and grammar errors. I double check that, but I would say quadruple check that, right? And sometimes you can look at a resume for hours and you kind of get stagnant and you miss some of these errors. So if you've looked at it a couple times, take a break, come back to it, and then you can kind of have a fresh set of eyes, right? So don't try to do it in one go. Okay, and here's some stats that we've kind of learned over the years. So one of them is 100% of HR managers said job candidates should contact hiring managers within 2 weeks of applying for a job. So this is just about being persistent, right? Sometimes it's really hard to find out where the hiring manager name is. So I would maybe start with LinkedIn here, search the company, search the people that work there, anybody that it's in HR that may be a hiring manager for the role. And I think it's totally fine to, if you did find their email, send them a direct email, right? Persistence is the best. You want to be front and center in their mind. They don't have much time on their hands. So you've maybe put in a great application, but it could have slipped through the cracks. So you want to constantly kind of be at the top of their mind. So do your best to kind of find out who the hiring manager is. Maybe send them a LinkedIn message first. Try to find their email. And if you can find their email, pop that out as well. Here's another one. So 48% of executives said they've decided against a candidate based on information they found online. So, you really want to make sure you kind of tighten up all your social channels, right? And your LinkedIn, right? You don't want your Facebook to show you in college partying, right? As your profile picture. You want to make sure that, you can even make your profiles private, right? But in the same vein, they want to see that you're interacting with social media, you're being active on LinkedIn and things like that. But make sure you kind of do a search on yourself in social media to kind of see what's out there, so you can keep off the things that may not be as attractive to different folks that could be hiring managers. And then kind of in a similar vein, digital damage control, right? It's kind of fun to conduct a search on yourself, type in your name, and see what comes up. We all did this recently. It was fun to see what came up. Take down any negative items, right? Untag inappropriate photos, and kind of take a look at this and see what comes out there for you. So brand building online. So, consider a personal website. Obviously, if you're a designer or a front-end developer, those are kind of must-haves, right? But I've seen a lot of folks that are maybe in marketing or in account management or brand managers, and they've created a really nice kind of online portfolio that shows kind of their skill set, right? It shows their interests. It kind of leads from your resume to your portfolio, and it's just another piece of kind of that brand building that people will remember. It'll be on their search bar, right? It kind of displays everything a little bit more kind of graphically for you. So if you can do it well, it's a nice addition to have. And then it serves as another job hunting tool, right? It could be searchable. If you type in your name, if someone's looking at a resume, they type in your name, they find your website, right? So that just, shows that you're out there once again. So, and then creates a hub for all your online activities, right? You can link to your LinkedIn or your Twitter if you're really involved with different marketing groups and different certificate programs and what have you. So LinkedIn best practices. So, consider your resume as a billboard, and the LinkedIn is your landing page that you're driving people to, right? Your billboard grabs the attention. The LinkedIn is where it drives people to, and you can have a little bit more information in this regard. So they should work in tandem, right? You want to make sure all your dates and titles should match up, right? You don't want any positions on there that you don't have on your resume, right? But your resume should be more tailored to the specific role that you're applying for. So make sure your picture is professional. It is pretty obvious when you have that latest wedding picture you attended or a picture with your friends or something like that. So make sure you kind of get a professional headshot done. It's really important to have that. And then in LinkedIn, you can kind of expand a little bit more, right? We say 3 to 5 bullet points for resumes. In LinkedIn, you can get into a little bit more of the day-to-day. You can really expand on those roles. I still think bulleted format is the best way to do it for LinkedIn, but you can get really kind of down into the nitty-gritty more than just your resume, which is kind of simple and to the point. And then kind of another thing that most people don't know is if someone sends you an in-mail message, for example, if Sarah and I send you an in-mail message and you decline the message, you can never reach out. We can never reach out to you again. So when you get a message from a recruiter and you're not looking at that certain point, don't accept the message and decline politely, but keep the open line of communication for when you're next available looking for your role, that line of communication isn't cut off. So social media, treat social media as a conversation, participate, right? LinkedIn is the best tool for this, especially in the professional sense. Personal updates, right? Comment on blogs, respond to questions, promote your contacts, share valuable information, right? You want to have an ongoing conversation with your network, right? So your name comes up, and it also helps with the search algorithm with LinkedIn. If you're really out there posting a lot and getting involved with different people, your name will come up to the top of searches more often if you kind of stay on top of that. Cool. So kind of the next spot, we'll do some Q&A, but wanted to see if there's anyone brave enough to share their resume and have us critique it or help out in any way possible?
So we have a question from Tracy Poland in the chat. She doesn't want to share her screen at the moment, but she has provided her LinkedIn URL. So
Okay.
perhaps if one of you could open that and have a look. Her question was, my question would be, if you consistently work for the same companies as a freelancer / consultant, should you list those companies just as digital marketing consultant?
It's a great question. So I'm trying to pull up the LinkedIn. Oh, here it is. Okay, let me link out to that. So I would say if you're a long-term digital marketing consultant, you should list all the companies you've worked for under that as your different clients. You shouldn't have different sections for each company, right? So you've been doing a lot of freelance or working with a lot of different clients, list them all under that title there. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, awesome. Shannon Layton has asked, can you tell us what the difference should be between your LinkedIn profile and actual resume? I see many people who have no descriptions of their positions on LinkedIn and wonder if that is preferred.
So I'll let Sarah share her thoughts on this, but my thought would be put as much information as you can on there. As I mentioned earlier, your resume is the billboard, right? I keep it simple, 3 to 5 bullet points, but I have seen that out there as well, where they folks don't list a lot of content under their titles. I think it's best to show the content under the titles, and it actually helps with search for recruiters that are looking for you out there. If you have keywords in there that are specific to the roles, it'll be easier for them to find you. And if you don't have anything listed under there, they're not going to find you. So I would say put as much content as you can under those positions.
I would agree with that. And I would also say that, you have the space on LinkedIn, right? You're not kind of limited to that 1 to 2 page limit that we typically recommend for resumes. So you have the luxury of being able to expand a little bit, maybe talk a little bit about, how you achieved the promotions in your company, that sort of thing, and how you've really evolved in your career thus far. So typically I say, everything that is on your resume should be on your LinkedIn, but not everything on your LinkedIn has to go on your resume, right? The resume is kind of like the highlight reel, like the quick 1 to 2 page snapshot. And then you can dive in a little bit more in depth on LinkedIn, maybe show some more of those awards, maybe show a little bit more of that volunteer experience, all the languages you speak, and obviously those recommendations from colleagues go into there as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a direct match, right, in regards to your LinkedIn versus resume.
Awesome, thank you. Marlene Todd is willing to share her resume for a critique. So we'll hand over the panelist mode to Marlene. Nicole is running our back end at the moment. We haven't done this before, so bear with us while we work through the logistics.
How do I go about sharing my resume?
You would share your screen and your resume should be open on your screen. Thanks, Marlene.
There we go.
You see it?
Nice. Yeah, I can see it.
Sweet. Would you mind scrolling down a little bit, Marlene, just so we can get the full picture as well?
Sure.
Okay, great. And now if you wouldn't mind going back up to the top, that would be awesome. So I'll let Mark dive in here with his feedback as well. But initial thoughts, I feel like you kind of are to the book in terms of what we recommend for layout, right? You have your name, you have a a professional summary up near the top, your skills, a couple of selected accomplishments, and then you dive into your work experience there. The one thing that I might say right off the bat is it is a little bit on the wordy side, right? You have quite a few text blocks under your experience sections. So figuring out ways to cut those down into smaller, more easily digestible bullet points will be helpful. Another thing that I see right off the bat is just the skills section, right? If there's anything that you can include in there in terms of hard skills, what project management tools have you used, for instance? Have you used Jira? Maybe Basecamp, maybe like throw those sorts of things in there. And then another thing, I don't actually know if we covered this, Mark, but soft skills can usually be left out of the skill section. So I don't know if our presentation covered that, but things like detail-oriented and strong leader and strong communicator, those really don't need to be in your skills section for the primary reason that those skills will really only come through in an interview. Hiring managers just aren't going to believe it just straight off a resume, and it can be a little bit of a space suck, right? Everyone says that they're a great communicator and a good leader and a good team player. So those sorts of things can kind of be left off there.
What if, can I ask a question on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
What if it's listed in the job description? Because I've heard that you're supposed to tailor your resume to the job description, and that's kind of a place to put that, I guess.
That's a
That's
great
a really,
question.
yeah, Mark, you take it away.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Typically, when you're applying through application portals for large corporations, right, it goes through a resume scanning program, and they're typically looking for more of those hard skills, right? Not really the detail-oriented ones, right, or those kind of softer skills. So I would say you'd be fine leaving that off and just keeping the hard skills on there. But if there are applications that require hard skills and you have one of those hard skills, definitely put that in the skills section of your resume. Sometimes it could go through a resume portal and it would get spit out because that's a big requirement for them and you don't have it in your resume, but you actually did have experience with it. So I would try to keep it to hard skills and wouldn't worry too much about the soft skills that they kind of state in a job description.
One thing I'll quickly add on to that is your cover letter can be a good place to address those soft skills a little bit more, right? If the company asks for a cover letter in conjunction with your resume, maybe talk about a time that you were really detail-oriented or the time that you were a team leader, and that can help kind of address those soft skills without being a space suck on your resume. Like we said, resume is just really prime real estate, so you want to focus on really what's important and what the hiring manager is going to be focused on. Mark, do you have any other feedback for Marlene?
Yeah, I do see under work experience, it says Hunter Douglas, and then under sampling project manager, it says Hunter Douglas Broomfield. So you could probably take one of those off.
Good catch.
So that's one thing there. And
that would really quickly, that would also be a really good example of where to include a company description, right? So, I mean, a lot of people know what Hunter Douglas does, but providing that context, I think they dabble mostly in window treatments, right? International window treatments company or something like that, just to provide that additional context might be helpful.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Arlene, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to go to Jonathan Kaplan next. And I think I know John, so hello if that is you, John. And then after that, we're going to look at Claire Palmer's resume. So we'll go to Jonathan first.
Hello, Dana. It's nice to see you guys, and thank you guys for putting this together. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome. I am sharing my screen. I don't know if you can see. Could you see anything on my screen?
I can.
Awesome. I definitely have an untraditional background. Right out of college, I started my own business and I sold it, and I had 2 positions since then. And it's kind of hard to fit all the stuff into one page, but let me know if you need me to scroll up or down.
Great.
So founder, inventor, burn bud. So that's kind of your thing that you created?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so I'll also obviously let Mark jump in on this. I think a couple of things I noticed. I mean, obviously you hit on the head with bullet points and showing ROI and showing metrics. I see lots of great juicy numbers on here. So good work there. One thing that I've noticed though is you've kind of, you've switched careers from your entrepreneur founder role into more of a content manager role, but you focus a lot on the founder role. There's so many more bullet points that you have under that than you do under the content. So I mean, it's fine to expand on that experience. Obviously, it's impressive. I see lots of great marketing experience that you did there, but you want to make sure that you're giving equal love to the roles that might be a little bit more relevant to the roles you're applying for, if that makes sense. This could also be a great opportunity for you to add some sort of professional summary, right? Since you've switched careers, use a 2-sentence summary to kind of dictate that. This is what sets me apart. I'm an entrepreneur turned content manager, and go into some of your hard skills and some of the things that you can really bring to the company. The only other thing I'll say is that there's a couple of grammar things in here, and forgive me, I'm a copy editor by trade, so I tend to notice these things. This is the most common one I see, led versus lead, right? The past tense of led is actually LED. So if everything is past tense, you want to make sure that you have that. That is a huge thing. So many people have that on their resume as LEAD. So it's not just you, I promise. But just, wherever those red lines are, go through and make sure there's no grammar errors, and maybe have a friend look at it as well, just to make sure that you've caught all of them.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Jonathan, can you scroll up to the top real quick?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So also it's good to maybe give yourself a title for this. And I think that's a good idea that Sarah had, to put a summary in there about changing careers and what you're looking for, but give yourself a title, right? You were a creative director, you were founder, inventor, but content manager, if you're going to go for a content manager role, give yourself a title, right? And call yourself content manager. And then, Texas original, compassionate cultivation, maybe a little bit more about what the company is in that section as well. And then as far as the bullets go, I always say that you want to have your most of your bullets target the type of position you're going for. So say if you're going for a content manager position, you want most of the content of your resume to be around that, right? So you could expand on the Texas original role. If you're going for a creative director position, you could expand more on that one, right? Or if you're looking to found another company and looking for investors, and for that, you could maybe, keep it as is and have the bulk of it be under the founder inventor category as well.
I'm thinking of putting my title as digital marketer, but yet I have not taken that position officially. What are your thoughts on putting a title of a position that you technically did not have that title before?
For sure. And, it depends on what you were doing at Texas Original. If you were doing digital marketing there, and it looks like you were, digital marketing campaign use and, ads and social media post, if that's what you're doing, then you can put that on there. I think that's totally fine. Titles are so interchangeable these days, and they're so ambiguous, right? You could be called a content manager at one role, but you really had the responsibilities of a digital marketing manager. So you want to make sure that's clear, right? If you were actually a digital marketing manager, but you had some kind of other ambiguous title, I think that's totally fine to put that on there.
Another way that you can maneuver that in the actual just titles of the companies or the positions you've held in the past is you could say like content manager and then in parentheses say equivalent to digital marketing specialist or something like that. We've seen some candidates do that with some success. So you can kind of like, you don't want to alter the titles too much, right? But if you held a lot of those responsibilities and you felt like your title is a little misleading, providing that extra clarity to the hiring manager is never a bad thing.
For sure. And you could do, I see it with slashes too, content manager / digital marketing manager, right? You have your official title there, but it leads to the title of digital marketing manager of what you're going after, right? So I think that's totally fine to put on there.
Excellent.
Final
Thank you
thing,
so much.
Jonathan, tiny thing, but the dates on your resume, I would add months in there as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Okay, just a couple of quick housekeeping items. We will be providing the emails for Mark and Sarah at the end of the call. So if anyone wants to follow up via email and get some feedback on their resume, they'll be able to do that. And also Claire was logged into the wrong account. Claire is actually Christian, so that's who we're switching to next.
Alrighty, sounds good.
Hey guys,
Hey, Christian, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for taking a look at my resume.
Sure thing.
Can you see that well?
Yeah.
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 Perfect.
Yeah, one thing, I think I like the bullets and how you laid it out and the italics. It's easy to read for sure. The overview section, you know, it is a little vague. You know, building relationships, I would say maybe tighten that up. Again, give yourself a title, but you can kind of tighten that up to what the role that you're going after is, right?
Okay. Where would you typically put that title within the resume?
I would put it at the top, typically, right under your name, kind of there in bold. Maybe not as bold as your name, but pretty, you know, the font kind of bigger in that sense for sure.
Sure.
And then I'd say, you know, education. We mentioned this in the presentation. You could put that at the bottom.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I think it looks good as far as kind of laying out your content there. Just maybe focus on kind of come up with that overview, a couple bullet points, and putting some skills in there. Any hard skills you're going after. You can even make another section. It looks like you're at one page. I know you probably want to keep it to one page. It's okay if it goes to a second page. It's not like the end of the world, but I think a title and a quick one-liner about what you do, and then a skills section could help.
Okay. Sounds good.
Sarah, did you
I
have
agree with everything.
Okay.
No, I don't really think I have anything else to add.
Awesome. All right. I'll take note and make some changes, and I really appreciate the help, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Mark Maidens. I hope I pronounced that right, Mark.
I love all these brave volunteers. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. What do I need to do? Just go to that?
You're gonna share your screen, and then you should have your screen or your resume pulled up on your screen.
Okay. Got it.
It should be towards the bottom. Yeah.
I got it. All right. Can you see it?
Yep. Mind scrolling down a bit? Thank you.
And I am at 2 pages.
That is not a crime.
Oh no. I've left a lot of experience off just to not show my age.
Yeah, and you know,
Another. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say about showing experience in the past. You know, what I've seen done nicely on resumes is, you know, you could put, you know, 2005 to 2010. If you had a bunch of different roles there and you're not really speaking to those and now, and you want to talk about more of your current roles, you can have a section of additional experience, list the years. You don't even need the months there, and then just kind of list the positions that you had without going into too much depth and the bullet points and the content. So I think that if you want to keep it on there, I think that's what you can put to kind of maneuver that.
I did that with the UPS. I was with 2 different divisions, regular and then supply chain. So my total career was 92 to 2010. but I only went back to the 1999 experience.
Okay.
Great. And that's a great way to show kind of your overall tenure with the company. If you were promoted a couple of times or if you moved into a different division, as you were saying. Just to everyone else on this call too, this is kind of a good example. Like when you have more than 10 years of experience, kind of condensing the stuff more previous to 10 years, right, into that additional experience section, just so you're not going on to like 5-6 pages. I don't think that we've ever had a hiring manager come to us and say, hey, we would have hired Mark if only his resume was 1 page. You know, I don't think we've ever heard that or ever will, but you just don't want to go on for too long. I mean, this looks awesome, Mark.
Thank you.
Can you scroll back up towards the top a little bit?
Yeah. One thing, you know, qualification skills, right? The soft skills versus the hard skills, right? You know, I see CRM strategy, you know, maybe what tools did you use in the CRM, right? CX, right? What tools did you use in CX, right?
Okay.
So I think that would maybe be one thing, but I really like how you've laid out a lot of your content here.
Yeah, and I'm definitely seeing some of that ROI in there, right? The metrics, the numbers. But for some reason, I did notice it earlier on in your career rather than the last few positions that you've held. So maybe try to incorporate that ROI all the way through, right? And break it up with numbers, impressive stats, growth, that sort of thing. My favorite thing to say is that your resume should read like a person, not like a job description. So anywhere that you can show that, you know, that data, it's really helpful.
Okay.
But yeah, love the layout, love the fact that you have your title, your professional summary, your skills, and then dive into your experience. I mean, very textbook. The only other thing that I might say is going into a brief description of what each company does. And I don't know, did you do that below Mad Marketing? I think that was your freelance gig.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And same thing with Hakoa, which nobody would know what
Great.
that is.
Yeah.
Great.
No, good job.
Okay, so you did it.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
No
I'll
problem.
give you back your screen.
Okay. We have a couple minutes left. If anyone else wants to jump in and share their resume, you know, let us know now. Okay. Doesn't look like anyone's stepping forward, which is totally fine. I want to thank Mark, Sarah, and Emily from the creative group for their participation and their help today. As we explained at the start of the webinar, the Marketing Alliance does a number of networking and learning events for business marketing professionals throughout the year. So if you'd like to learn more about any upcoming events, please visit our website, which is themarketingalliance.org. And you can also follow us online there. Thanks for spending time with us and have a great day and a great rest of the week, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, Dana.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dana.
Bye.
Bye.